We were asked to talk about mind revolution. So I would like to talk a little bit about my experience. Before I met Zen Master Seung Sahn, actually before I even knew what is Buddhism, I just finished high school, entered university in the United States, and it was time of the Vietnam War at that time. So like many young people at that time, I wanted to be useful to the world, do something for everybody. At that time, I believed that the way to change the world is to do it through political system. So after I entered university, I began a lot of anti-war activity. And actually, what my cohorts with whom I worked at that time in this movement, political movement, and I wanted was a revolution. So for us, revolution meant change. And of course, we believed that the change we want is change that will make the world better. So we organized many demonstrations, and I did a lot of marching, also did a lot of shouting, and made speeches. And then at one point, we organized the biggest event ever. It was quite a sizable demonstration. Many people joined this protest. But while this was going on, something happened. At one point, during this big gathering in the center of the city with many, tens of thousands of people, I looked at my cohorts, I looked at my friends with whom I organized this event, and suddenly I felt very deeply, if my friends were in charge of this country, I wouldn't want to be there. All of a sudden it became clear, we are protesting the government, we are protesting the people because of their desire, anger, and ignorance, but my friends are not any different. Actually, that was not so bad, but then I looked at myself, and all of a sudden it became really clear, if I were in charge of this country, I wouldn't want to be there. That one moment of realization was the end of my political activity. Because in that moment, I turned around and left the demonstration. After that, I had only one question. How can I change myself? So I, well, like many intellectuals or intellectually hindered individuals, I looked at books. So philosophy books, psychology books, and religion books. And I found something called Buddhism. And also I found something called Zen. And all of a sudden, I thought, wow, it's possible to do it. And it's not necessary to believe in something very mysterious, something very special. I can do it through my own experience. Yeah? And not only I, but anybody can do it in their own life. They just have to do something that's called practice. So I thought, that's wonderful. Then I want to do this something called practice. Yeah? And of course, in Buddhism, there are many kinds of practice. In America at that time, the most famous kind of Buddhism perhaps there were two, Zen Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism. But somehow I met somebody who practiced Zen. He was not a formal teacher, but in a sense he became my first teacher. So I started practicing. And that was a great revelation because, looking at this world as a young man, I was always thinking, I'm okay. The world is screwed up. It was very revolutionary to realize maybe the world is not so screwed up. Maybe it's just me. This is my little experience of mind revolution. Revolution, there are two kinds. There's what we call fast revolution, instant revolution, and slow revolution, sometimes called evolution. Yeah, as a young person, I was most interested in something very fast. But I discovered fast is not fast. This is just another kind of desire. So when I practiced in this style of doing very, very hard training and then giving up. Then again, very, very hard training, again giving up. Eventually, it became clear that's not the best way to do things. This mind revolution may be something that happens instantly, but we need to make very careful and steady cultivation. So in other words, sometimes slow is fast. But why do we talk about mind revolution at all? Yeah. But everybody, if you read the newspaper, watch the news, we all know there are many problems in this world. Who's responsible to fix these problems? Who's going to help this world? Is it God? Is it Buddha? Maybe it's us. Maybe it's you and I. So if we want to be able to help this world, we need to wake up. So in his welcoming speech already, Andrzej Stec, the second guiding teacher of Subong Zen Monastery, explained, this is the mind revolution, this waking up. So I hope everybody in your life make correct practicing. Yeah. Save yourself much suffering. Practice very steadily. Don't do it my way. Then finally, this mind revolution can become yours. Then of course, please don't stop there. Yeah. One more step means please help this world. Yeah. Take care of your family, your society, yeah, this whole world, and all beings. Thank you for your attention.
Good evening, everyone. I also want to congratulate the Subong Zen Monastery on its 20-year anniversary. I think the first time I came to Hong Kong with Zen Master Sung San was before it appeared, a year before it appeared. And that time we stayed in a hotel over in Kowloon side. So it's certainly been more worthwhile and fun and wonderful to have a Zen Center functioning here and continuing to grow and sharing practice and teaching with anyone who wants. Zen Master Sung San passed away 8 years ago, and I think he'd be extremely happy that we're having this meeting here this night, and that the Zen Center and the teachers and students have continued to grow and develop and found the teaching and their effort worthwhile. For those of you who aren't so familiar with either our Zen Center in Hong Kong or our school, we had a very energetic, dynamic, and you could say charismatic teacher. But I think one of the greatest things he did is be able to pass on a energy and interest and commitment to many people so that our practice continues to grow even years after he's passed on. So everyone, even us, can find that a live teaching is something that you can apply in your life right now. When we were introduced Zen Master Bong was introduced as sitting on the right, and Zen Master Bong sitting on the left. And from up here, that's true. But from where you're sitting, Zen Master Bong is sitting on the right, and Zen Master Bong is sitting on the left. That's a very good example of what everybody's faced with every moment of the day, of your life. From up here, I'm on the right, he's on the left. But from down there, he's on the right, I'm on the left. So the way human beings see things is very dependent on my situation. And if we attach to my situation, we won't understand other people's situation. Which is correct? I'm on the right, he's on the left, or he's on the right, I'm on the left? What do you think? Clapping? Which one is that? This is not just lecture, you know. This is a little interaction thing here. It's called life, and our life is an interaction. And really, because every day, all the time, you're in that same situation. With your family, with the people you work with the citizens that you live with, the shopkeepers that you deal with, people you pass on the street. Everyone has a different perspective according to their situation. Which one's more correct? Also, your mouth and your stomach often have a different opinion according to their situation. Tonight's Saturday night? Saturday? When I was growing up, Saturday night you went out. I don't think I ever went to a talk about religious practice on a Saturday night. So you people are very interesting. Either you have some big question in your life, or you have nothing to do. But most people Saturday night are constantly having a fight between their stomach and their mouth. After some time of eating and drinking, their stomach says, okay, that was good, stop. But most people's mouth has a very different opinion. Most people's mouth says, I'm having a good time. Let's continue. And then there's a fight. If the stomach wins, then sometimes the mouth is a little unhappy. If the mouth wins, then sometimes later the stomach's a little unhappy. So if we live our life that way, something's always suffering. When we humans are born, we have two main concerns: eating and sleeping. And we're not thinking about it either. We just do it. And when it's not satisfied, we scream about it. We have no thought of you and me. As we grow, the other desires appear. So Buddha said very clearly, humans have 5 main desires: food, sleep, sex, money, fame. As we grow, these 5 desires all become stronger. One thing we should consider about fame. Fame is not only I want to be on television, I want to be in the magazine. Fame means I want attention from others. So everybody has fame karma. Even if we don't care about the television, the magazine, etc., still we want attention from others. Probably the last desire to function, to really appear in our life is money. Nowadays, that's about the #1 desire in the world. Human society now has almost no direction. Doesn't matter what system we have, everybody wants money. I was born same year as him, but different part of the world, in 1950. At that time, many people in the United States had a good situation. Europe and Asia both were still recovering from world wars, also many kinds of wars over here, war with Japan, World War, and Civil War. So Asia and Europe, many difficult situations. Bong Sansa and I were talking the other day, and he mentioned in the 1950s in America, many families had a house. They had a car. Anybody could have a job. And the parents could think, my children will also have that. I remember going out on the street where I lived just on the outside of a big city, Philadelphia, looking down the street that I lived in. Everybody had a house. Each house was different from the other. They weren't just copies of each other. Every family had 2 cars. My family had 1. But I remember thinking, we have a very good situation. It's beautiful. We're comfortable. No worries about jobs. But I know inside the house is many kinds of suffering. Relationship problems, emotional problems, mental problems, self-doubt. Then a big question appeared in my mind. Even we have this social comfort, this economic success and security, still there's plenty of suffering. Then if suffering is not dependent on situation, then what's the cause of suffering? In my city, there was many black people, many white people. In America, black people were free since 1863. But even 100 years later, not equal. Didn't have the same opportunities. Lots of prejudice and limitations and hindrances. And also at that time, my mind thought, why white people and black people cannot make a, healthy and good relationship? So even the society freedom, even society success, still many kinds of suffering. There's a Christian church, if you go to Christian church, then they said, well, believe in God, then afterwards go to heaven. That was a little confusing to me. People talked about heaven like it was someplace like Hawaii you go to when you die, and it's wonderful forever. But I remember reading in the Bible, Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within, which to me meant the heaven's inside. So how come nobody looks like they're in heaven? One day I happened to go to an international camp in Japan. I was 11, and during the summer, which involved playing baseball and all the usual things, we went all around the country also. There were kids from 10 different countries. That time, I remember we went to Kamakura. There's an outdoor Buddha there, maybe 20 meters, 30 meters high. I had never seen Buddha. I had never heard of Buddhism. But for some reason, when I saw that statue, I felt he understands. He understands where suffering comes from and how to take away suffering. Not only did it look like he did it himself, but he knows how to teach me. I didn't want to read about it in books. So it took about 15 years before I met a teacher. The first night I met Zen Master Seung San in America, he had already been there almost 5 years. He was giving a public talk at a Zen center that his students had started near Yale University, famous university. His teaching style was a student of his would give a talk and then he'd answer questions. That night, someone asked him, what is sanity, what is insanity? I had, as I think it was announced, studied psychology and studied and worked about 10 years in the field of psychology. Although I had quit it, I was very interested. Oh, that's the area I used to, that was my area before. What's the Zen master going to say? That time, well, his whole life his English was so-so, but he turned to a student and he said, this man, what say? What say? He didn't understand the English words sanity, insanity. Then his student understood his English, so the student said, this man asked, what's crazy, what's not crazy? Then Seung San Sanim said, if you're very attached to something, you're very crazy. If you're a little attached to something, you're a little crazy. If you're not attached to anything, that's not crazy. At that time, I thought, that's better than my 10 years of studying psychology. Then even successful businessman's very attached to something, that's crazy. Even politician, even religious person, very attached to something, that's crazy. So very clear, not dependent on our situation, our condition, or anything. Yes, dependent on my mind. Then he continued talking. And he said, so in this world, everybody's crazy because everybody's attached to I. But this I doesn't exist, only made by our thinking. If you don't want to attach to your thinking I, want to find your true nature, you must practice Zen. He said that. That time, I thought, that's my teacher. So first, we have to recognize we only really understand our own point of view. If we only function from our point of view, our life will have many ups and downs, nonstop, forever. If we can understand the other person's point of view, that's better. But I don't think that's the real mind revolution. Biggest cause of suffering is this idea I have of I. Unless we see through that, we will never get out of suffering. Doesn't matter whether you get a wonderful government, a successful situation, anything. The root of our suffering comes from false idea about I. If you're not sure of that, then conduct your own experiment. Spend some time every day and investigate I. Ask yourself, what am I? What am I? Am I this body? They already said, I met Sansanim when I was young. So, the body was young and this body's older, but I don't know who met Sansanim, and who's talking to you now. So look at your own body. Is that me? Is my consciousness me? My emotions me? What am I? If you look in that, you will have a mind revolution. Then in many situations, you can suddenly see them differently. One of our Hong Kong students once drove me from Lantau Island back to Causeway Bay. Traffic jam, I don't know, maybe it was an hour or something. From near Tai O, so wind around and everything. My Cantonese is Gola and Lehoma and bye-bye. His English was a little better than my Cantonese, but not a lot better. During the ride, I asked him, how many children do you have? Do you have children? He said he had 3. I said, how old are they? 17, 14, 4. I was shocked, 17. I thought he was 28. He was about 40. So I said, how's 17-year-old? He said, good. How's 14-year-old? No good. Then I asked, boy or girl? He said, girl. I said, how's the girl's relationship with mother? He said, bong bong. You don't need a lot of words to talk to people. I know one language and I go everywhere in the world, and the less I use it, the better my relationships. So then I asked him, how's the girl's relationship with you? Then he said, before bong bong, now okay. Then I asked him, what happened? He said, he had been doing meditation about 2 years. Then one day the thought appeared in his mind, I don't like the relationship I have with my daughter, but I don't know how to change it. I don't know what to do about it. So he told me that time he stopped saying hardly anything to the daughter. Because every time he talked, soon, bang, bang. And he said, very strange thing, suddenly his daughter understood his mind. She understood he doesn't want bang, bang, but he doesn't know what else to do. Then he said their relationship just stayed at that point for a few months. Not so much, not talking really. Then one day his daughter came and started to tell him about her experiences in school, with her friends, with her teachers. So real mind revolution comes from seeing something inside, looking into this I. Even if you don't get you feel like you didn't find anything, just by looking in, things change. You don't have to believe in Buddhism. It's not Buddhism. It's just a human being looking for the truth. That's all. 5 desires are important to satisfy, but if that's all our life is, you will never be happy. If you realize there's something else that's just the treasure, what's so valuable, then look for that, then you can change your relationship with the 5 desires and even use them to help all beings. That's a real mind revolution. I think that's what Buddha was really trying to teach us. To show us. Thank you.
多謝。